So speaking of this, I think the Big 12, what has happened here, not just because it may have been a poison pill to get the SEC and Big Ten fighting with each other to propose the 5+11 playoff format that Brett Yormark did. I also think standing the Big 12's ground here has been a much tougher thing to do than it's getting credit for. I'm a little frustrated the Big 12 is not, at least, even if you disagree with the decision to do that, I'm frustrated the Big 12 is not getting credit for what it's done here by standing up to the 4-4-2-2 model. People have really written this off as stupid and really had this attitude of like, man, there are smart people in the Big 12. I don't understand why they are doing this. I think there should be some respect being paid here, more than there has been to the league so far. And it's a bit frustrating to me that hasn't happened because, like, if you listen to Josh Pate, if you listen to Joel Klatt, two guys that I have an immense amount of respect for, and I think are as good at their individual jobs in this media sphere as anybody doing it. Absolutely. Josh Pate, in terms of doing like content, talk show, podcast, whatever you want to call it, nobody better right now in the college football space. And Joel Klatt, as a color guy, nobody really better than him right now in the college football space. But man, they are very stringent on this. Hey, if you sign up for 5+11, there's going to be like 6 or 7 SEC teams in every year. You'll only get one. The gap will grow because of that. And that's it. When you could be having a 4-2 guarantee on that split, you could sign yourself up for that split every single year. Now, they also really like the 4-4-2-2 format because I think they have a point. They claim that it would help out late in the regular season and making some of those games more intriguing, which seems a bit counterintuitive, but it's because you would have teams trying to fight to stay out of the play-in games at the end of the year, the 3-6 matchup and the 4-5 matchup. Because even if you are undefeated in early November, you still got to worry about, man, you dropped 2 in a row. Now all of a sudden you're going to be fighting for your playoff life in a do or die game on a conference championship weekend, which, that's a fair enough point. I think there is something to that. So they have a lot of reasons, I guess I would say, to support the 4-4-2-2 format. But they're also guys who, and I know Joel Klatt played in the Big 12, but they're guys that from a national perspective, they don't really have like a dog in the fight on all this. So it's very easy to say, well, yeah, just take your chump change, Big 12. That's a hell of a deal. You're a beggar out there with a sign on the side of the street. Somebody's trying to hand you $100. Like, just take it. And the Big 12 saying, no, I'm going to hold out because I think I might be able to actually like get a job someday that would pay me pretty well and allow me to, put together a nice life. So I don't need to take this $100 right now. I'm going to wait it out for something better. The thing that I have not heard, now maybe I could be wrong, but I have not heard either of these guys say, but the Big 12 is standing for something here. It's not just complete nonsense for no reason. They're doing this because they don't want to codify that they are one half of the SEC and Big Ten. Because the next time they negotiate a TV deal or any kind of deal, they don't want the bidding to start at, well, you're not getting a penny more than half of what those other leagues make. And they don't want it to, hurt from a recruiting standpoint. Like, well, you guys already admitted that you're just half of what they are. Why would I go play here? It's giving up on what could happen long term. Do the odds look wonderful that you're going to get closer than where you're at right now? They do seem kind of long. I understand. But you can't sign up for that yourself. You can't sign up for that willingly. And I loved this. Shout out to Jack Trice Mafia on Twitter today, because I saw this analogy for what the 4-4-2-2 model actually is for the Big 12 and the ACC, and I thought it was great. So now this actually came in a back and forth with Josh Pate himself, which more on that in a moment. But Jack Trice Mafia said, yes, I've listened to his explanation. The 4-4-2-2 is an absolute mousetrap that I'm so glad the Big 12 didn't fall for. 2 bids looks nice on paper, but would smoke out the Big 12 and ACC's ability to compete over about 10 years. And I even think, I would just say in perpetuity. I keep using that term, but that's because we don't really know how long. I would even argue with Jack Trice Mafia. I don't think we can say, well, put a 10-year cap on it and things would be different then. No, this could like change the course forever, man. That really does potentially alter the course forever of your 2 conferences here. And that is why you don't do it. But a mousetrap is such a good analogy for it, because it's like, hey, look here. Here's some cheese. You guys only got one in last year. BYU couldn't get any consideration, even though blind resume tests would tell you they should have. Man, that's tough. That's too bad. Even if it were a 16-team playoff, they would have been 17th. Boy, that's pretty rough. Well, here's 2 every year, and we'll only take 4. So you're guaranteed the split at worst. You got some limits on how bad this can be. Why don't you just take that? I mean, that looks pretty good. That's a pretty appetizing thing, and you're hungry right now. I can tell. You start creeping up towards it, but you're like, man, the second you get in that thing, whack. And, I'll say this isn't like a mousetrap that's going to kill you, but maybe something that comes down and just traps you in a cage. You're just going to be trapped there. That's what you're going to get. You're going to get your 2 playoff spots, and then that is it. You're going to be trapped there. It'll be limited. Upward mobility kind of goes away. The other part of this, and I'm glad it was mentioned by Jack Trice Mafia at some point there, is the second that you do it, SEC goes to 9 conference games. SEC and Big Ten start a scheduling agreement with each other. They're going to lock you out from ever playing them. And the rich get richer. They monopolize it even more as they want more emphasis on strength of schedule with everything. Good luck ever getting any kind of at-large bid outside of that. You take that, it's done. They grow even closer together, and the monopoly grows. And that's why this really is a mousetrap. And it's set up for, hey, on the outside, this really looks great. That's a huge hunkin' piece of cheese. Why would you not take it? You got to watch out for the dangers. Seems too good to be true almost, right? That's because it is. That's because you would be signing up to say, we are half of these conferences, and you can't do that. So it's actually taking a lot of discipline here, man. I would say this is taking a lot of discipline from Brett Yormark, the Big 12, the ACC, really everybody, but especially the Big 12 and the ACC. They're the ones that this would affect the most. They're the ones on the front line the most with this. It takes a lot of gumption to say, well, man, think about how much this could suck over the next 5-6 years on that next contract if 5+11 is in there, but we got to preserve the ability long-term to compete more than just that. We can't seal our fate forever to that right now. And for that, we're going to have the willpower to not go for it quick. This is, everybody these days, you can read so much research about this, different books. I get Instagram ads about it every day. Is your dopamine, do you need a dopamine detox? Everybody goes for the short little dopamine hits these days. Instead of trying to work for something long-term that will provide you really good, legitimate dopamine after you accomplish it, we get distracted by just being on our phones and looking for the next dopamine hit of the next notification that somebody liked your Instagram post, right? Big 12's not going for the cheap, quick dopamine hit here. They're waiting for the long-term satisfaction. This is writing a book, something that will take a while, but could provide much better benefits long-term. It's eating your vegetables. Eating your vegetables instead of just grabbing the fast food, or like waiting to come home and cook a nice meal instead of hitting up McDonald's on the way home. And I just wish there was a little bit more of that in all the discussion of this. I wish there was a little bit more recognition of that for the Big 12 and what they're doing here. Like, this is not easy. It also may be, if you believe our Webb's theory there, that it was kind of a poison pill thrown out by Brett Yormark because he knew it would get the Big 10 and the SEC fighting with each other, then perhaps it's not just a strong willpower type of move, but it is also very much a move that was smart and calculated and clever. So there are a lot of superlatives here that I think could be used, and I wish there was more talk of it. But I mean, a part of the problem here is nobody really cares about the Big 12 angle on it. And if I could just pontificate a bit about why I hope that you'll keep coming back to this channel and why I hope you will subscribe to the Open for Business Big 12 newsletter, that angle, what this means or says about the Big 12, doesn't mean enough nationally for people to really get that down in the weeds for it. And I'm not blaming them. This whole back and forth, the Jack Trice Mafia thing, he had called out Josh Pate for not talking about the Big 12 enough on his show. I have said this before, I'll say it again, like, I completely understand. I mean, he's got to do what drives interest in his show, which, if you're a national college football show, particularly one with him, where like he grew up in SEC country, he's naturally going to have a pretty big SEC following. Like, yeah, Big 12 stuff it's not going to, I'm going to say not going to rate, which is not really a great term for YouTube. It's not going to draw the eyeballs that you want. So you do have to kind of work around that. And that's not saying that, total sellout, slave to the system, whatever. No, I mean, like, you're trying to build a popular show. You want people to see your show. I do the same thing. It skews sometimes more towards like a BYU. They have a massive fan base. So sometimes I might talk about a BYU topic that I wouldn't talk about otherwise for other schools, because I know there's more interest there in it on this channel. I try to serve the viewership that is here. We all do that. But the problem, if you have a real issue with that, is just that we now live in a college football atmosphere, an environment, an ecosystem where nobody is rewarded for talking about the ACC or the Big 12. They're rewarded for talking about those two big conferences because the TV networks and Greg Sankey and Tony Petitti, Kevin Warren, going back to those days, like, they rated everybody else. They pulled in all the big brands. They set up this monopoly, and then that's what it is. If you're going to cover the sport from a national level, if you want viewership, if you want most of the interest, you're going to have to do that. So they're not going to care to dive that deep into it, but I will here, and I will make that point. I guess that's why it's my show. I get to raise that point. Credit to the Big 12 for having some real discipline here, I think, in the way that they have handled this. And now it's very interesting how this has played out, that it's completely sent this back to scratch. Remember, the SEC and the Big 10, it is written into that contract. They have the power to just force through whatever it is that they want. They do legally, yes, and there was legal action threatened. They do have to listen effectively enough to the Big 12 and ACC. They've now tabled everything and gone back to zero. I would think that's probably going to satisfy a lot of that. I mean, they can come back with whatever it is that they want. If they really wanted to force feed whatever it was down the Big 12's throat, they could have done it. They haven't. And that is a win. Minor win for now for the Big 12. That really, really took some discipline.